Yo, what's up guys? It's Noah here, and in today's video, we're going to be breaking down the NBA slate on Draftkings and Yahoo for Tuesday, February the 9th. We're going to cover Tuesday's 7-game slate, go team by team, break it all down. I'll give you guys my early thoughts, what I'm seeing the night before, what stands out to me looking at the slate on Monday night. But, before we do get started with the breakdown, guys, as always, I'd appreciate it if you'd hit that like button down below. If you are new to the channel, be sure to click that subscribe button as well. Click the notification bell so that way you do get notified every time I upload. You never miss out on any of my new videos. You will also get notified every time I do go live. I do plan on live streaming once again this afternoon, probably around 4 Eastern time. So if you're able to tune into the live stream, check it out. Around 4 Eastern time, we'll be able to answer all your questions for tonight's slate. If there's any news that comes out throughout the day that we need to touch on, we can do that in the live stream as well. But yeah, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Also, check out my Patreon content, link down below in the description. If you do enjoy the videos I put out on YouTube, you like the videos I put on YouTube, they help you out. I do offer more content on Patreon. You can get my my full core plays. You can get in our Discord chat. You can get my player pool, my rankings, my cash and GPP sheets as well. Basically, I list off my top cash plays, some of my favorite tournament plays. All that can be found on Patreon, so if that is something that does interest you, you can check that out, link down below in the description. But let's go ahead and start off with this Brooklyn and Detroit game and take a look at tonight's slate. So in this Brooklyn game, starting off on the Brooklyn side, the Nets are a pretty appealing team today, specifically the top two guys. We know that Kevin Durant is going to remain out. I believe he's going to be out until Friday. So James Harden, Kyrie Irving are the two guys we really want to look to from Brooklyn. Harden is 10,900. Obviously, last game against the Sixers, he didn't have that great of a game, but he also didn't play at all in the fourth quarter. I don't know what happened, but they decided just not to play him in the fourth quarter. Maybe the blowout, but the game was kind of reachable. They were down by like 16 or like 15 in the fourth quarter. I mean, they should have brought Harden back in. But even in 29 minutes, he was really good, had 53 DK points. Obviously, if today's game stays close, we expect, probably 35, 36 minutes from James Harden. With no Kevin Durant, he gets a big bump in usage. I definitely have interest in Harden today. I think he is one of the better spend-up options on the slate. And then Kyrie Irving, I think, looks like a great pay-up option as well. He's probable, so he's expected to play. With Kyrie back, obviously that hurts Harden a little bit, but still, the usage with no KD, it's going to be dominated by these two guys. I think if I have to choose one between Harden or Kyrie, I think I'd rather take Kyrie because he's, almost $1,600 cheaper. I think I prefer the savings and, going with Kyrie, but both guys are really good pay-up options. Both have a ton of upside here. I don't have a problem playing, both guys together in the same lineup. I think, they look like two of the better studs on this slate, so definitely like Kyrie as well. The mid-tier is very strong today. There's a lot of guys in like the 7 to 8K range that I really like. But I think Kyrie's a great play. I think Harden's a great play. Those are the two guys I have the most interest in from Brooklyn. And outside of those two, I don't like much from this team. I don't know what their starting lineup's going to look like today. I assume Bruce Brown starts, but I really don't know. Last game, they went with Harden, Joe Harris, Jeff Green, DeAndre Jordan, and TLC. That was their starting lineup. I thought they were going to start Bruce Brown last game, but they didn't. Maybe if TLC starts, he could be a solid value, but he's 4,200. He's not that cheap. Bruce Brown, if he starts, maybe 3,800, but it's not like he's that cheap either. I really don't like much from Brooklyn outside of Harden and Kyrie. I mean, Harden and Kyrie are clearly the two guys we want to go to from this team. So that does it for the Nets. Now moving on to the Pistons side. It is a pretty appealing matchup for the Pistons here. Big-time pace-up spot against Brooklyn. Brooklyn's been really bad defensively this year. Losing Kevin Durant, I don't think is going to make their defense any better. So Jeremy Grant at 7K, I do have some interest in. I think there's some other guys in the mid-range that I prefer over him today, but I do have some interest in Jeremy Grant. We will need to watch the status of DeLon Wright. DeLon Wright is currently questionable. Wayne Ellington is also questionable. If we do get a scenario where DeLon Wright is out, with Derrick Rose no longer on this team, I would assume that we probably see Saben Lee move into the starting lineup. I don't exactly know what they're going to do if DeLon Wright's out. They do have Dennis Smith Jr. now, who they acquired in the Derrick Rose trade, but he is also questionable. It's tough to tell what this Detroit team's going to look like. I assume DeLon Wright plays, but if he's out, maybe Saben Lee starts, and Saben Lee is minimum salary on DraftKings. We haven't seen much from him this year. He hasn't really played at all outside of, just blowouts and just random games. But if he does wind up starting, he's minimum salary. He would definitely be someone we could consider as a punt play on the slate. But obviously that only is if DeLon Wright's out. I would assume it'd be Saben Lee who starts, but maybe they start Josh Jackson at point guard. I mean, they could do that. we'll just have to wait and see. If DeLon Wright plays, I think the only guy that I have interest in from Detroit is Jeremy Grant. But if DeLon Wright is out, I do like Jeremy Grant, and then I will be interested to target whatever value play, whether it's Saban Lee or Dennis Smith Jr. If one of those two guys winds up starting, they could be a value. But that really does it from Detroit. Not the greatest team overall to target. Even though it is a good matchup, there's not much I like outside of a couple of guys. Like Blake Griffin's really cheap at 5K, but he's just been so bad this year. He's hard to trust even at a 5K price point. So moving on to the next game, we got the Knicks and the Heat. So these teams did play on Sunday. We saw Julius Randle have a pretty big game against the Heat on Sunday. He went for 56 Draftkings points in 38 minutes. We know the kind of upside that Julius Randle has on a nightly basis. This is not a matchup where I would expect him to have a ton of success, but he is a very productive player when he's on the floor. He's back to getting monster minutes. It seems like he's going to be playing 38 to 40 minutes as long as the game is close. As a tournament play, Julius Randle's definitely viable. I'd never have a problem paying up for him because just the upside he has. But, optimal plays in terms of like cash options, I'm not playing Julius Randle in cash games. I think, Kyrie makes a lot more sense for a couple $100 more. So that's my take there. Definitely have interest in Randle in tournaments, but, nothing more than that as a lower owned option in tournaments. Now, Derrick Rose is on this team. I really have no idea if he really is going to have any fantasy impact. Like, coming out of the gate, I just don't think he's going to get a ton of minutes. I mean, they still have Elfrid Payton. They still have Emmanuel Quickley. It's really tough to gauge what this point guard rotation is going to look like for the Knicks. We don't know yet if Derrick Rose is going to play. He was acquired, I believe, on like Saturday or something. So there's at least, there's a chance he's not able to play today because he still has to go through, all the necessary protocols. But if D Rose winds up playing, I mean, that makes me less interested in someone like Elfrid Payton. Elfrid Payton's definitely the point guard I'd prefer to go to from the Knicks today, just because his minutes have been way up lately. Last 3 games, 35, 35, 31 minutes. If Derrick Rose plays, like I just don't know what his minutes are going to look like. You really never know what the minutes are going to look like for Elfrid Payton, but he's been playing decently well, or he's playing somewhat well lately. He's obviously been, playing better than Emmanuel Quickley. At least it seems like that. They've been going with Payton over Quickley lately, so if you tell me we're getting 30, 32 minutes from Elfrid Payton, I would have some interest in him at 4,800. He's not like a top value by any means, but definitely is in play, especially if the minutes are going to continue to be there. But with Derrick Rose now in the mix, if he is able to play, that does make me a little bit less interested in Elfrid Payton. So overall, there isn't much to like from the Knicks today outside of, sprinkling in some Julius Randle in tournaments. Reggie Bullock had a huge game last time these teams played. But I'm not chasing that. I'll let other people play Reggie Bullock. Like Julius Randle's the only guy I have some interest in from the Knicks today. So moving on to the Heat side. On the Heat, there really isn't much that stands out as a top option. Like Bam Adebayo at 8,700, his price has come down a little bit. He did have a really good game when these teams played on Sunday. I don't mind Bam Adebayo, but obviously he's not like a top option for me. There's definitely other studs I prefer on the slate. Jimmy Butler, not my preferred option to pay up for either. Like the Knicks are not that good of a matchup. They play really slow. They've actually been good defensively. There isn't much I like from Miami. Like Kendrick Nunn, he started last game with Goran Dragic out. He played, I believe, a good amount of minutes, but he wasn't that productive. 31 minutes, only 26 DK points. His price is still, somewhat high at 5,600. If Kendrick Nunn was like 4K today, I'd have a lot more interest in him. But at 5,600, it's a little tougher to get there. So, I don't like Kendrick Nunn that much either. Even if he starts again, I really don't like much from the Heat at all. I think Bam Adebayo's him and Julius Randle are lower owned tournament options you can target, but I don't think there's much I'm going to be targeting from this game at all. I mean, this just doesn't look like the most appealing game, at all on this slate. So moving on to the next one, the Rockets and the Pelicans. So this one is pretty appealing. We do have some injuries to watch here. So Victor Oladipo, he played on Monday, but this is a back-to-back, and they've already come out and said that he will be out on Tuesday. So Oladipo is not expected to play today. So that's going to leave John Wall, Eric Gordon, who did not play Monday. I assume John Wall and Eric Gordon will be back for this game. I do have interest in John Wall today with Victor Oladipo out. John Wall finally saw his minutes get up a little bit last game. He got 32 minutes against the Spurs, had 41 DK points. I believe that was a game where Oladipo played in, so I think if we're going to get like 32, 34 minutes from John Wall, I mean, at some point his minutes are going to start creeping up. Like, he's not going to play 32 minutes, the rest of the season. We saw at the beginning of the year, before he got injured, John Wall was playing like 35, 36 minutes. Like, he can definitely handle those heavy minutes. I think at some point the minutes are just going to keep going up, and At 7,300, if we're going to get, like I said, 32, 34 minutes from John Wall with no Victor Oladipo, with the amount of usage he sees, the big bump that he gets with Oladipo off the floor, I definitely have interest in John Wall today. I think he does look like a really solid option in the mid-range. I like him quite a bit on both sides. He does feel a little bit too cheap on Yahoo as well, coming in at $31 over there. Definitely have interest in John Wall today with Victor Oladipo expected to be out. And I do want to talk about DeMarcus Cousins. So Cousins has kind of been a bit of a letdown lately. Last 2 games he started for Christian Wood. He's played 30 and 25 minutes, just 35 and 27 DK points. He has not been playing well at all lately. This is a back-to-back too, which is a bit worrisome. Cousins only played 25 minutes though on Monday, so it's not like he was really running to the ground. It's not like he played 35 minutes. I think people are going to start shying away from Cousins. I don't expect his ownership to be nearly as high today as it was yesterday or was on Monday. He was very popular Monday. I don't think he's going to be nearly as popular today. I still like going back to DeMarcus Cousins. We know the upside that this guy has. Obviously, he hasn't been great lately, but I don't want to look too much into box score or too much into game log because that can definitely come back to bite you in the end. Cousins is still an incredibly productive player. He's still a guy that's going to stuff the stat sheet when he's on the floor. It's a revenge game if you want to factor that in. He used to play for the Pelicans, so I like Cousins still a lot. I think he is still a really strong option on both sites, especially Yahoo. He's way too cheap on Yahoo still. He's only $20 over there. I think you're locking in Cousins on Yahoo, even though he wasn't great Monday. I still think he's just way too cheap. If I was gonna get away from Cousins, it would be on DraftKings because he is somewhat expensive on DK. You do need like 45, close to 50 from Cousins for him to be a really good play at this price tag. But obviously, he has that upside in him. We've seen him do it before. I hope people shy away from Cousins. I'm still going to be playing him. I still think he is a really strong pay-up option. With Christian Wood still out, the minutes, they should be there. On a back-to-back, there's maybe a bit of worry here, but I think we still get probably 26, 28 minutes from Cousins, if not a little bit more. He could definitely drop, 45, 50 DK points in that time with how productive he is. So really like John Wall, really like DeMarcus Cousins. If Eric Gordon was cheaper, I'd have interest in him, but at $6,200, it's tougher to pay that price tag for Eric Gordon, even though Oladipo is going to be out. Eric Gordon has had some decent games these last few 33, 36 minutes. He does play much better when one of those two guys, whether it's Wall or Oladipo, is off the floor. But because his prices come up so much, I don't have as much interest in him today. I think if I was going to play him, it would be on Yahoo. He's still pretty affordable over there, just $19. I think Eric Gordon does look like a pretty good play on Yahoo, but that basically does it for the Rockets today. I don't have that much interest in Jayshawn Tate. His upside is just not that high. Not really a guy I want to go to at 4,700. Daniel House started on Monday, played 30 minutes, had 20 DK points. I assume he moves back to the bench with Eric Gordon playing today. So don't really like Jayshawn or Daniel House. So really on Houston, the only guys I have interest in are John Wall, DeMarcus Cousins, and I think Eric Gordon is viable more on Yahoo than DK. But moving on to the Pelicans side. So on the Pelicans, pretty appealing spot here. The Rockets, they are playing fast this season. They're still playing at a pretty fast pace. They have been much better defensively though, but they're still playing, somewhat fast. So decent pace up spot here. Should be a relatively fast paced game. Should be a pretty high scoring game too. Brandon Ingram at 8,500. At that price point, I'm not the biggest fan of him on the slate. Kind of the same with Zion. I haven't really played these guys much this year just because it seems like they're always a little bit too expensive for my liking. Same with Lonzo Ball. Lonzo I think has upside in a fast-paced game like this, but at 6,300, don't know if I really want to pay that price tag for Lonzo. I think if I can find $1,000, I'd just rather get up to John Wall. I really don't like much from the Pelicans at all today. I think Josh Hart is questionable. If Josh Hart winds up out, I don't really know if that affects too much. He does play pretty good minutes off the bench. Those minutes would have to go somewhere. Maybe you see Nickeil Alexander-Walker pick up some minutes. Maybe you see J.J. Redick pick up some minutes. I guess if Josh Hart's out, J.J. Redick wouldn't be the worst punt play, but still not someone I'm really confident in at all. I just don't like much from the Pelicans at all today. I think this is going to be a team I'm kind of just going to stay away from. If I was going to play anyone, it'd probably be, Zion or Brandon Ingram, but neither one feel like core plays today. Neither one feel like guys, I'm going out of my way to pay up for. So we can go ahead and move on to the next game, the Spurs and the Warriors. So we saw these two teams play on Monday. They're playing once again on Tuesday. It is a back-to-back for these guys, but obviously they're not having to travel, so I don't think it's going to affect too much, the back-to-back that is. But Steph Curry starting off at 10,400. I'm pretty sure Curry had a pretty good game again Monday night. He's been playing really well lately. He had a huge game on Saturday against Dallas, and I think he did do pretty well again against the Spurs on Monday. Curry at 10,400, we know the kind of upside he has on a nightly basis, but I still don't think I'm going to be going out of my way to pay up for Curry on the slate. Definitely would rather play Kyrie for over $1,000 cheaper. I think I'd rather get up to James Harden as well. Curry's viable if you're playing a lot of lineups, but I think if I'm playing one lineup, like there's no way I'm playing Steph Curry today. Just my opinion. I think his price tag's a little bit too high for me for, a guy that's just only playing one lineup. Draymond Green, I do still have some interest in because he's just been playing so well lately. He's been getting a ton of minutes, basically since they moved him into the starting lineup or into the starting center position. Basically since he's been starting at center, his fantasy value has just skyrocketed. We've kind of seen the old Draymond lately. He almost had a triple-double on Monday night against San Antonio. I believe he finished with like over 40 DK points. The price tag seems high on Draymond, but the way he's been playing lately, I mean, we saw, last year when Draymond, or, I don't want to say last year, but years past where Draymond is kind of, we know the kind of upside he has. Like, Draymond's one of those guys that can drop a triple-double any night. He does do a little bit of everything. He gives you defensive stats. He's back to playing, 36, 37 minutes a night. On the back-to-back, maybe they don't push him as hard, but I still like Draymond Green quite a bit. I think he does look really good on Yahoo. If you play over on Yahoo, Draymond Green does still feel way too cheap over there at $25. He finished with 38 fantasy points on Monday night against San Antonio, but like I said, he was 3 points away from a triple-double, so, on DraftKings, obviously, he would have had a better game if he got the triple-double, but 7 points, 10 rebounds, 10 assists, 1 steal, 2 blocks in 35 and a half minutes for Draymond. He's looked really good, man. He's been playing really well, been producing. I do have interest in Draymond Green today. Not a ton of interest in Kelly Oubre or Andrew Wiggins. I think if I had to play one of those two guys, it would probably be Kelly Oubre, but I don't love him on the slate. Same with Juan Toscano-Anderson. His price tag's just getting to a point where I don't have that much interest in him, so it's really just Steph Curry I think you can mix in tournaments, and then Draymond Green I do still have a good amount of interest in, but that kind of does it for the Warriors today. This is a back-to-back, so I guess we'll need to monitor things here. I'm assuming that everybody's going to play, but with the back-to-back, maybe you see someone rest. But yeah, we'll go ahead and move on to the Spurs side. On the Spurs, I think they're a pretty appealing team once again. I did have a lot of interest in most of the Spurs on Monday night slate in the same matchup, and I do like them once again on Tuesday night. Their price tags are still pretty affordable. DeMar DeRozan, $7,800. His price only went up $100. He was $7,700 on Monday night slate. He also had a pretty good game Monday night. I think he finished with like 42 or 43 DK points. He wasn't a smash play by any means, but obviously DeMar DeRozan lately has been playing really well with no LaMarcus Aldridge. I believe LaMarcus Aldridge is still going to be out, or is he questionable? Okay, so we don't have an update yet on LaMarcus Aldridge. This will be something to monitor. If Aldridge winds up playing, I'm probably not going to go to DeMar DeRozan at $7,800, but if Aldridge remains out, I think DeRozan is definitely viable. But the guy that I really like is Dejounte Murray. I think Dejounte Murray, regardless of Aldridge's status, I think Murray's just too cheap on both sites. $6,500 on DK, in my opinion, that is way too cheap. On Yahoo, he's only $27, also too cheap for Dejounte Murray. He had a monster game in this matchup on Monday, went for 65 fantasy points on Yahoo, had 27 points, 10 rebounds, 4 assists, and he had 8 steals on Monday night. Obviously, that's not something we can expect to happen again, but even if you take out the 8 steals, I mean, he still had like 40 fantasy points even without the 8 steals. Like, Dejounte Murray is just someone that when he's getting 35, 36 minutes, I don't know if he's going to play 36 minutes again like he did Monday, but even in 30 to 32 minutes, like Dejounte Murray just has so much upside. He's a great point per minute player. He does get a little boost with LaMarcus Aldridge off the floor, but still, even if Aldridge plays today, I'd be interested in Dejounte Murray. I think he's too cheap for the upside he has. It's a big time pace game. 233.5 or 233 total right now in this game. Should see a ton of points scored here. Both of these teams, I'm pretty sure San Antonio, they're top 10 in pace this year. They're 10th right now, whereas the Warriors are like a top 3, top 2 team in pace. So should see a ton of points scored here. Should be a high-scoring game. I like Dejounte Murray a lot on both sides. Gets a little bit of a boost if Aldridge is out, but even if Aldridge plays, I still think Dejounte Murray is a really good option. So he's definitely the guy I have the most interest in from San Antonio. Jakob Poeltl, I'm not too interested in. He had a decent game Monday night against the Warriors, but at $6K, his price is just getting too high for me. Derek White, I was pretty high on Monday, and he was terrible. He didn't do really much at all. His price came up as well. Tougher to go to Derek White on this slate, so I don't really like a ton from the Spurs. Once you get past DeRozan and Murray, I don't really like much else from this team. Obviously, DeRozan is going to be dependent on if Aldridge plays, but even if he does, I still really like a guy like Dejounte Murray. I'd be less interested in DeRozan, though. But yeah, that does it for the Spurs. We can go ahead and move on to the next game. the Magic and the Blazers. So on the Magic side, this is a team that's just been dealing with injuries all year, and that's once again the case today. Aaron Gordon remains out, while Evan Fournier is also out for the Magic. Last game, Evan Fournier was a late scratch. He was expected to play, and then we got word literally right before tip-off that he hurt his back, and I think pregame warm-ups or something. He wound up not playing. We did see Dwayne Bacon start in place of Evan Fournier in their last game against the Bulls, and he played 31 minutes in the starting lineup. Was somewhat productive, didn't have a great game, but did have 22 DK points in 31 minutes. Right now, we don't have a ton of value on this slate, so I do think Dwayne Bacon is someone we can look to for value. Maybe if there's better value plays that open up, we could maybe swap off Bacon to somebody else, but assuming Bacon starts again for Fournier at 4,100, I definitely have interest in him if he's going to be playing 30 to 32 minutes. He's pretty cheap on both sides, 4,100 on DK. If you look at Yahoo's pricing, he is actually minimum salary over there, and he's small forward, which is usually always a pretty tough position to fill, so I do like Dwayne Bacon quite a bit on both sides. He does have a small forward eligibility on DK too. You can play him at small forward there, but yeah, like I said, Dwayne Bacon should be starting here for Evan Fournier. Got 31 minutes last game. I think it's likely we get probably 30 to 32 minutes from him again. We know the usage on this Magic team is going to be dominated by Nikola Vucevic, but still, Bacon's a remotely decent point per minute player. He's not going to go out there and crush, but he could definitely give you, 25, 30 DK points if he's playing 30 minutes, especially in a really good matchup against Portland. I do like Dwayne Bacon as a, kind of an early look value. I think Vooch, obviously, forgot to talk about him, but Vooch looks like a great pay-up option. He really got his value killed last game against the Bulls with the blowout. He only played 21 minutes in the blowout, had 33 DK points. I'd expect Vooch to bounce back in a big way here. No Fournier. The usage, it's just going to be even higher for Nikola Vucevic. The offense is going to run through him. The price tag is still, pretty nice at 8,900. It's not like Vooch is insanely expensive. He can still definitely pay off this price tag. If you are paying up at center today, I think Vooch is by far the best option at the center position, at the top at least. We know the matchup against Enes Kanter is really good. Enes Kanter, not a good defender at all. Portland, a bad defensive team. They play fast as well, or they haven't been playing as fast this year, but still a pretty good pace-up spot for the Magic, given the Magic, play at a really slow pace. So I do like Vooch quite a bit. At 8,900, I think he's a really strong pay-up option. Cole Anthony at 5,900, I think his price tag is just a little bit too high for my liking. If he was like 5K, I'd have a lot more interest in him today, but 5,900 doesn't stand out as a top play. Terrence Ross, you would think, with no Aaron Gordon, with no Evan Fournier, that he might actually be able to do something. He only played 20 minutes last game because of the blowout, just 16 DK points. I've said it, I've basically been saying it for like the last 5 games that like Terrence Ross, he's eventually going to have a decent game where he puts up, 30, 35 DK points. It could definitely come here against Portland in a really good matchup, pretty good matchup against, a somewhat fast-paced team. I do like Terrence Ross at 5K. I know he's been god-awful lately, but I think now that there's no Fournier, like that should just allow Ross to do even more offensively. More usage should be heading his way with Fournier out. I think his minutes will be higher as well. He would have played way more minutes last game had it been a close game. So I do like Terrence Ross. I think him and Dwayne Bacon are solid values on the slate, and I think obviously Vooch is a really good pay-up option at center if you can fit him in. But that kind of does it for the Magic side. Moving on to the Blazers and looking at them here, Damian Lillard at 10K. I think he's underpriced on this slate for sure. It's a little bit tougher to get to Lillard just because, we have Kyrie Irving with no Kevin Durant. We have James Harden with no Kevin Durant. But I think Lillard looks like a really good option as well at 10K. We know the upside that Damian Lillard has with CJ McCollum off the floor. And we've seen it, in his last few games, 56, 67 DK points. Like, this is a guy that can drop 60, 70 DK points any night, especially when he's playing monster minutes, when he's getting more usage without McCollum, which is the case right now. The matchup isn't great against the Magic, but 10K is probably too cheap for Damian Lillard. He should be, closer to 11K when CJ McCollum is out. So I do like Damian Lillard a good amount as a pay-up option. Enes Kanter at 7,500 I think is a little bit too expensive for my liking. We know the upside that Kanter has, but it's tougher to pay that price tag for him on this slate. I think, honestly, I'd probably rather play DeMarcus Cousins, and maybe that's a hot take with how bad Cousins has looked lately, but I still probably would take him over Kanter. Gary Trent Jr. is too expensive for my liking. Robert Covington, I think his price is a little bit too high. I really don't like much from Portland outside of Damian Lillard. Like all the cheaper guys that we've been targeting lately for value, all of them have kind of been priced up. So nobody really stands out as a top play from Portland outside of Lillard. I don't think I'm really going to be targeting anyone else on this team. So we can go ahead and move on to the next game, the Sixers and the Kings. So on the Sixers side, it is a great matchup for them here against the Kings. The Kings have been playing really fast this year. They've been terrible defensively. Normally when the Sixers team is fully healthy, I don't really look to target anyone outside of Joel Embiid, and I think that's kind of the case tonight. Ben Simmons, Tobias Harris, I think are just a little bit too expensive for my liking. Embiid, though, at $10,500, I have no problems paying that price tag for him. We know the massive upside that Joel Embiid has. It's tougher to get to him on this slate, I think, given the savings. I'd probably rather roster Vucevic for like for almost $2,000 less. I do like Lillard at $10K. I like Harden, Irving. I think Embiid's going to be lower owned today. I don't see a ton of people paying up for him, so definitely someone you can look to in tournaments. Obviously a great matchup. He has a ton of upside. I don't think I'm getting there like in cash games or in my optimal lineup. In my main lineup, I doubt I'll pay up for Embiid, but definitely in play for tournaments. He is the one guy that I do have interest in from the Sixers today. Don't really like anyone else on this team, though, outside of Embiid. I don't really see myself going to Ben Simmons or Harris or Milton or even Seth Curry. I think it's just, kind of Embiid, and we can move on. So on the Kings side, the Kings are not that appealing of a team today for me. In my opinion, it's not a great matchup against the Sixers. If I was going to target anyone on this team, it obviously would be De'Aaron Fox. We know De'Aaron Fox has massive upside any night, but this doesn't really feel like a slate where I'm going to be going out of my way to play De'Aaron Fox. If he fits into my lineup as like a last guy in, I'm fine playing him, but talking about Fox at 8,800 or Vooch at 8,900, I'd rather play Vooch at 8,900. Rashawn Holmes, his price is pretty low at 5,700. It's a brutal matchup against Embiid. It is definitely a spot where Rashawn Holmes could get into some really bad foul trouble. Fouls they've always been an issue for Rashawn Holmes. And against Embiid, we could definitely see Holmes, pick up 2 early fouls in this matchup. But if he can stay out of foul trouble and he does get his normal 32, 34 minutes, Rashawn Holmes is too cheap at 5,700 if he's going to play closer to 34 minutes. I don't know if that happens, though, because he could definitely get in foul trouble here. If you want to take a shot on him, though, I don't see him being that popular at all in the slate. I think Rashawn Holmes does have some upside in tournaments and is too cheap if he can stay out of foul trouble. So have some interest in him, but outside of Rashawn Holmes and a little bit of De'Aaron Fox, not much else stands out from this Kings team. So moving on to the last game of the night, we got the Celtics and the Jazz. Now this game, in terms of pace, in terms of defense, these are two really good defensive teams, two pretty slow-paced teams. Not much stands out from Boston today. Jaylen Brown, he is questionable right now. We don't know his status yet. Jason Tatum obviously gets a big bump with Jaylen Brown out. Marcus Smart is still out as well. But Jason Tatum is 9,200. It's a pretty brutal matchup against the Jazz. This just doesn't feel like a slate where I'm going to be going out of my way to pay up for Jason Tatum. Would I be surprised if he puts up 60 DK points? I wouldn't be surprised, but I still think there's guys I'd rather target at a similar price range that are in better matchups. Vooch, Kyrie Irving. Those are guys I'd rather play over Tatum. So even if Jaylen Brown's out, I don't love Tatum. Kemba Walker, he was god-awful last game. He played 33 minutes, which was a plus, but he only had 22 DK points. Even if Jaylen Brown's out, I don't really think I'm going to go to Kemba Walker at 6,600. I don't really like anything on this Boston team. Even if Brown's out, I'm probably not going to really be going to anyone. And if Brown plays, I definitely have no interest in anyone if Brown is in. So Boston's just kind of a fade for me. Don't really like much from this team at all. Now, on the Jazz side, it is much more appealing on the Jazz side, not because the matchup's good or anything, but because Mike Conley is out. With Mike Conley being out, that does make this team more appealing. Donovan Mitchell, we saw him have a big game Sunday with Mike Conley out. He played 38 minutes against the Pacers, had 56 Draftkings points. He was 2 rebounds shy of a triple-double, 27 points, 8 rebounds, 11 assists, and 1 steal. Took 24 shots in that game. I really like Donovan Mitchell here. I think with no Mike Conley, he does get a pretty big boost. The ball's going to be in his hands a lot more. He does get more usage with Conley off the floor. The offense is going to run through Mitchell. I know the matchup's not good. It's a pretty slow-paced game, but I think Donovan Mitchell is still a little bit underpriced for the upside he has with no Mike Conley. So I do like him quite a bit on both sides. He definitely is still too cheap on Yahoo. If we look at the pricing there, Donovan Mitchell, $32 at shooting guard. He got bumped up a little bit, but not enough. I think Mitchell does look really good on Yahoo as well. So he's by far the guy I have the most interest in from the Jazz. I think Rudy Gobert is definitely viable, though, at 7,200. His minutes haven't been as high as I would like. He only got 31 minutes last game in a really close game. It seems like even in close games, we're only going to get 30 to 32 minutes from Gobert. Earlier in the year, he was playing 35, 36 minutes in close games, but that just hasn't been the case lately. He still does have upside, though. He does get a little boost with Mike Conley off the floor as well. I don't mind Gobert at 7,200, but just straight up, I think I would rather play DeMarcus Cousins at a similar price point. Bogdanovich, I think, is too expensive. Jordan Clarkson, I don't mind coming off the bench. He wasn't great last game, but he did play 30 minutes. If we're going to get around 30 minutes from Jordan Clarkson, with how high usage of a player he is, or with how much usage he soaks up when he comes in, this is a guy that's going to check in off the bench and just going to take a ton of shots. I mean, he took almost 20 shots last game. He didn't shoot that well from the field, but still had 25 DK points. Like, if this guy can get hot from the field, I mean, you can definitely see him put up 40, 45 DK points. I know he had a really big game last time Donovan Mitchell missed. Obviously, Mitchell's playing today. But without Mike Conley, you definitely see Clarkson get a boost. He should get more minutes. I still do have interest in him at 6K. Joe Ingles, though, even though he's starting now, he's too expensive, $5,800. I can't pay that price tag for Joe Ingles. So that kind of does it for the Jazz. I think definitely the two most appealing guys, I would say three most appealing for me, are Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert, and Jordan Clarkson. Those are the three guys I like most from Utah today, with obviously, Mitchell being my favorite there. But that does it for all 7 games, guys, today. I think we, all 7 games, I think we broke everything down for this Tuesday slate. So hope you guys enjoyed the video. I do appreciate you watching. If you enjoyed, hit that like button down below before you get out of here. Hit the subscribe button as well. Click the notification bell so that way you get notified every time I do upload. You also get notified every time I do go live. Be sure to check out my Patreon content as well. If you want to get my cash and GPP sheets, you want to get access to my player pool, my rankings, my core plays, if you want to get in our Discord chat, all that is available for Patreon members. So if that is something that does interest you, if you would want to see what I have to offer or more that I do have to offer, you can check out the Patreon link down below in the description. But that does it for tonight's slate, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video. I appreciate you watching. Good luck tonight, and we will see you in the next one. Peace.